breathing busy, right? Now, all you probably would think, well, breathing is getting oxygen into your lungs, etc., etc., right? But there is actually a whole definition for breathing, right? So breathing is when you change the volume, hear me clearly, when you change the volume of your thorax. Your thorax starts from like around here, base of your neck, so like right above here, which is above the tummy, right? So it's when you change the volume of that area to bring in oxygen and to release carbon dioxide. So that's our definition of breathing. Now, there are actually two types of muscles that are in your body that will ensure that you breathe properly, and it makes sure that you get enough oxygen that you need, and also gets rid of the carbon dioxide that your body generates. The first one is what we call the intercostal muscles. They are located like literally right here in between the rib cage, right in the center there. Sometimes when you cough and you're coughing for a long time and you're just coughing your life out on top of your belly here, this hurts. That's your intercostal muscles. And I'll explain what coughing does to your body. Coughing actually gets rid of you just get a nice six-pack. Yes, coughing actually helps to get rid of that extra gas that you would have in your lungs, right? And yeah, trust me, when you're coughing, only time you feel like your belly getting strong. The next time we have that stretches across the body, starts from like here and goes all the way across. That's what we call our diaphragm. So it's a sheet of muscle and elastic tissue that's going to stretch across the body right underneath the heart and the lungs, right? So these two things are actually going to manipulate itself when you're breathing in and you're breathing out. So these things, those terms actually have scientific names as well. When you're breathing in, it's called inhalation or inspiration in some books, right? You all can take a deep breath now, if you could, right? And it wouldn't hurt your tummy. Let me take a deep breath. And I want you to observe what's going to happen to your chest when you do that. So let's take a deep breath. And release. So when you take that nice deep breath, you would have noticed that your chest would have gone up. When you breathe out, the chest drop. I'll explain why. When you're breathing in, right, that diaphragm muscle that is here, right, that diaphragm muscle that stretches across here is going to pull downwards. And the reason why it's going to pull downwards is to increase the volume of your whole chest area to get that oxygen to rush into your lungs, right? Your intercostal muscles are going to contract and pull your rib cage up and out. So that same muscle that Anaya that you say that is gave the little six-pack, that same muscle helps to pull that rib cage up to allow that space to get bigger to allow oxygen to come in. When you're breathing out, which is exhalation, your diaphragm muscles, okay, Anaya, no problem. I wish you luck, right? Your diaphragm muscles relaxes and it will spring upward to push out all that carbon dioxide that you have generated in your body out of your lungs, right? Like I said, sometimes in the event that you'll have to cough, the diaphragm muscles are actually going to squeeze really hardly to get that air out of your body. Now, the lungs and the rib cage real close to each other. I will show you some diagrams, but they're real close. The lungs really spongy and the rib cage is bone, so it's typically hard, right? You probably, if you ever think about it, when your lungs expanding, contracting, the rib cage not expanding and contracting. So you could actually have, you can run the risk of the rib rubbing against the lung, and with the friction, it could cause it to burst. Luckily, your lungs are actually designed and has a special feature that acts as a lubricant. So between the lung and your rib cage, there is something called the pleural membrane, right? Now, the pleural membrane actually creates this liquid that is called the pleural fluid that's going to lubricate the sides of the lungs so that when it expands and contracts, it wouldn't burst, all right? So that is, and it also separates the two lungs, separates left and right from each other. Anybody here has any questions so far? We all right with everything so far? Y'all feel free to ask, and this is a very interactive class. So we all right with that? No questions? All right, so Anna is fine. Amrit, you all right with it so far? Lujin, Leah, Travis, Jeremiah, Alim. All right. The next thing that I want to discuss with you is something that we call oxygen debts. You ever realize after you run for some time, or you exercise for some time, or boys when all you're playing sports, or girls if it is already decide to feel a little bit adventurous and decide to go and walk on the treadmill or walk outside, and you walk along, by the time you don't walk or you don't run, you're breathless, you're like this. And you're breathing hard, and you can't get yourself, right? Now, the thing is, you all should know by now that respiration is the process by which your body, when you don't chase sheep, when the respiration is going to actually give you that energy that you need, right? Now, when you exercise, in Anaya case, if she running on little goat and little sheep, right? You're going to need more energy because you here now doing something that your body not doing all the time, right? And I mean like whole day, all the time. So you're going to require a little 1-year-old. Anaya, you just call your sibling a sheep. Anyways, you're going to need that extra energy, wow, to be able to give you that boost to do what you had to do, right? Now, because you're going to need more energy, you're going to breathe heavier while you are doing whatever exercising you're doing, right? And faster as well. So your rates increases, or he is with eating bananas and milk. Wow, that's a real healthy child, right? So because of that, to be able to compensate for this excess amount of oxygen that you're going to need, because remember, oxygen combines with the glucose to give you the energy, you're going to breathe harder and faster to take it in. Your heart rate is also going to increase as well to get that oxygen pushed to themselves at all points of times, right? However, there is a limit to how fast your heart could beat at that given point of time, and how fast the blood is going to leave the heart and get to all cells, the parts of the body that requires it. To give you that additional boost of energy that you're going to need to get your superhuman strength to sprint, your muscle cells are going to respire anaerobically for a short space of time. When it respires anaerobically for that short space of time, remember, anaerobic respiration is when your cells is breaking down the glucose. It doesn't have no oxygen there. It just breaking the glucose down by itself, right? When it does that for that short period of time, it's going to give you the little energy boost that you need, yes, but you're going to have lactic acid building up inside of you. When that happens now, by the time you're done doing whatever activity, so after Anaya run down, she little monkey brother, you're going to start to feel breathless. And that's because there is a buildup of lactic acid inside of the body. In order to get rid of that, lactic acid is not good for you, right? It actually poisons your joints, right? So in order to get rid of that, you all need a large amount of oxygen to counteract that, combine with it, and break it up. So when you're done exercise, it takes a couple minutes, well, to be able to get in the oxygen that is needed for that lactic acid that generated, to be able to get rid of it. Because it comes like this. You go to the bank and you take a loan. You take a loan to be able to get money that you didn't have to do something, right? But then now you have to pay back the bank for the money that you borrow with interest too, mind you. Kind of like your body. You borrow energy that you didn't have, right? To be able to carry out whatever function you needed that extra energy. So because you borrow it from yourselves, you have to pay it back with oxygen. So this is what we call oxygen debts. Anybody has any questions there so far? Are we all right with that? All right, now in front of you, you guys are actually viewing a smoker's lung and a healthy lung. Anybody can make a guess which one is the healthy one and which one is the smoker's one? Who burned the chicken? Which one do you think is the smoker's one? Left. The left, not the left.
Right,
Left
Miss,
is
right.
healthy, yeah. Right is the smoker's lung, right? Now, everybody here know that, you know, your lungs could be severely damaged when you are smoking, especially if it is your heavily smoking. So also your lungs could be damaged if you are inhaling that smoke from that smoker all the time, right? Now, young people in the Caribbean and America, right, are more prone to smoke cigarettes as opposed to young people in other parts of the world, right? So there are many components in tobacco smoke, but the most addictive one is your nicotine, all right? So here it is, you're actually getting to view how bad it is damaging you. As Travis said, it looking like burnt chicken. It looked like somebody just literally take this man lungs, push it in the oven and crank up the heat and burn it, char it, right? So let me explain the different components found in your cigarettes. And then I'm going to show you how the smoker's lung is so damaged, how to put it, its function is so diminished that it doesn't allow you to breathe properly, right? Wow. Anaya. So nicotine, all right? Nicotine is the addictive drug. This is what gets you hooked on your cigarettes, right? What nicotine does, it actually damages your circulatory system. Blood vessels have a certain width and a certain amount of elasticity to allow for good and proper blood flow, right? Nicotine is coming now, make them blood vessels get hard and narrow so they can run the risk of rupturing. If they rupture, you could get a stroke, right? Some people, depending on where it ruptures, they can actually die instantly. Also, when the blood vessels start to get narrower, it increases generally overall the blood pressure in your body because now your heart had to work like twice as much to be able to get that same amount of blood that you need into them tiny vessels, right? The next one is what we have is tar. As you could see, my lung here on the right hand side is the really busted lung, and tar causes this problem. Now, tar is a mixture of different chemicals. Some of them are what we call carcinogens. Carcinogens, and let me just write that name on the screen. A carcinogen is a chemical that causes cancer, all right? So imagine you smoking this thing and you actually putting into your body firsthand something that's going to increase the risk of cancer inside of your body, all right? Now, what these chemicals do is that they affect the behavior of your respiratory cells, causing them to divide uncontrollably. Now, when cells reaches a certain size, they typically do divide in order to create new cells, right? But this is actually controlled with a series of enzymes. The carcinogens actually causes those enzymes to malfunction and for the cells to malfunction. And as a result, you find that the cells just keep dividing and dividing and dividing until a big mass accumulates. And that mass is what we call a tumor. Now, if the tumor is benign, and let me spell benign on the screen for you. If it's benign, right, it's not going to be cancerous. But you see, if it's malignant, it is cancerous, right? Now, the next thing that you find inside of cigarettes is carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide has come out from car exhaust fumes, y'all. So imagine people inhaling firsthand car exhaust fumes, and I don't pop the lung, please, right? What carbon monoxide does, it will combine with the hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the red pigment in your blood. Hemoglobin is responsible for carrying oxygen to different parts of the body. If this combines with hemoglobin as opposed to oxygen, it could poison you and you could die. And lastly, when people are smoking, right, there are little particles of carbon and other materials that are present in cigarette smoke. They could get trapped in the lungs, and in the bid and the attempt to get rid of it, the white blood cells will start to secrete a chemical, and those chemicals will do serious damage to the lungs itself, break your alveolus down, and then you will not be able to breathe. All right. So just give me a minute to get a video up that shows you how these two different lungs, let's compare the lung function in them.
This set is pink and healthy. They represent the lungs of a healthy person. But this set doesn't look so great. They represent the lungs of someone who has smoked a pack of cigarettes, that's 20 cigarettes, every day for 20 years. Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the healthy lungs. They're being inflated with air, just like when we breathe. As they fill up with air, both lungs expand like they should and push oxygen into your bloodstream. We need oxygen for our body to work. When we breathe, air passes through our nose or mouth into our trachea or windpipe. In the trachea, air passes cilia. Those are tiny hairs that keep dirt and mucus out of the lungs. From the trachea, air passes into two large tubes. Each tube splits off into many smaller tubes. At the end of these smaller tubes is a cluster of tiny air sacs. There are over 600 million air sacs in our lungs. Imagine how small they must be. Each air sac is covered in small blood vessels that take the blood directly to your heart. The oxygenated blood goes directly to your heart, and your heart pumps it to all the cells in your body. Now, back to the smoker's lungs. These represent the lungs of someone who smoked for 20 years. These lungs are a blackish brown color because of the tar that comes from each cigarette. Tar is a sticky black substance that is created when some chemicals burn and melt together. The tar created by burning tobacco is similar to the tar that is used on roads. Tar in your lungs may lead to lung problems that can make it hard to breathe. Even though vaping doesn't force tar into your lungs, it does cause your lungs to get inflamed and clogged with blood, pus, and other fluids. The chemicals in cigarettes also cause lung cancer. If you look here, lung cancers have started to form. They start in the cells that line the surface of the lungs, like this white area. The lower portion of this lung doesn't inflate. That is what lung diseases like COPD and emphysema look like. People with these diseases find it hard to breathe, and they struggle with even the smallest, easiest activities like walking. Which set of lungs would you like working for you? The choice seems pretty clear.
All right, so that's one of the videos that I want to show you, right? Another one, I'm gonna back out of it, is this one.
There's something else I want to talk about, which is what a healthy lung actually looks like, okay? Healthy lungs are great. Now, put your gloves on.
I'm not touching that lung.
Even
I'm
with a
not the
glove?
doctor. Listen, man, I go deep with stuff that I butcher in the kitchen, but I'm not touching human nothing.
I know, but I touch London broil with you.
I don't care.
I go into your fiefdom.
Not going there.
All right, here we go.
Long day ahead for me, Doc.
All right, so.
See, now this is healthy? That looks so unhealthy to me.
I know, well, wait till I show you unhealthy, though. So this is healthy lung. It's pinkish gray. It's not completely pink like this, but it's pinkish gray, and it's smooth. It's very smooth, and you can see some of the air sacs in there. Now, there is a little black pigmentation. This person probably lives in an urban environment. We all get that from the environment. It's called anthracosis. It deposits some pigmentation inside of your lung. But this is a nice-looking lung, okay? Now, the great thing about healthy lungs is that healthy lungs will allow you to get that oxygen in. They will allow you to be able to get that carbon dioxide out, and it makes you feel better. So you have the synchronization between your lungs and your heart. They're a 1-2 tandem, okay? We got that, right? Now, what I also like to talk about is that if you think that your lungs are becoming unhealthy, you need to know your signs of when to go to your doctor. So shortness of breath, okay, upon exertion. So you're doing something, you're getting shortness of breath. If you have dizziness, okay, with changing positions. Also sometimes pain. If you have pain in your airways, it could be a problem. And also this persistent cough, a persistent cough or wheezing. Now, let's talk about what unhealthy lungs look like, okay? I'd like you to look at this. I know you don't want to touch it, but these are bad lungs. Yeah. Now, you see the difference?
They're so distressed.
Now, you can see here, look at all the black pigmentation. This is from the cigarette smoke.
And very little capacity.
Right. There are 7,000 chemicals that are in cigarette smoke. Major ones are nicotine, carbon monoxide, and tar, okay? And so you can see here they have this deposition of black pigment. Look at here. This is where a dilated air sac, which is called emphysema. So people with emphysema have a problem getting all their air out because the air gets trapped. and this is what it
Gets
looks.
trapped in the pocket.
That's right, in the pocket
hole.
right here, in this hole right here.
Right.
Okay. This here is your lymph node. Your lymph nodes drain your body, drain your organs. You can see all the blackness in here. That's the deposition. And also, look at this area right here. This is like a Brillo pad versus
It's
over
hard.
here.
Smooth,
It's nice
right.
and smooth.
When they talk about,
so
when
you
they say it's like a Brillo pad, I want you to think about the texture, like, you know, the green part in the sponge you wash your wares with. That's what I mean. So lungs are typically supposed to be spongy and soft, and that smoker's lung hard, like that.
said this didn't look too healthy, but you compare this to this, and you realize
it becomes extremely obvious.
that's right. But remember, when we talk about lung disease, particularly with smoking, we're talking about strokes, we're talking about lung cancer, and we're talking about heart disease could also be a problem. So you got to be very careful. And premature aging. If you're doing all these bad behaviors, your lung are going to age prematurely. We don't want that to happen.
And your skin too, right? Your complexion, your skin is a giant organ.
Right.
And if you don't feed it right, it withers and dies too.
And the CDC says 16 million people right now are suffering from a smoking-related illness. There's no redeeming value of smoking whatsoever.
None.
You know, and it's an addiction, by the way. It's not easy to quit, but people can quit. So
Right. So anybody has any questions? They're based on the smoker's lungs, fish, and the fish gills. Right. And so we're looking at gas exchange in fishes, right? Now they're gonna actually breathe a little bit differently than us because of the fact that they don't have lungs, right? Instead, they will actually obtain whatever oxygen that is dissolved in the water around them and use that to be able to survive. The surface of their gills is what we call their gas exchange surface. Now, this is Jimmy the fish, right? And Jimmy has dedicated his whole little fish body to science. Now, a fish has many gills, right? There are spaces in between the fish gills, right here on the lap here, that are called gill pouches. So they're actually open to the outside, right? So water can get in. In bony fishes, there is a piece of skin that is called the upper column, and the upper column actually helps to protect and support this structure for them. Now, each gill, and I'm just gonna go down there from Jimmy, and it's okay. Right, each gill is supported with a bone in the center that is called the gill bar, right? So that's this bone in the center here. And on one side, you have the gill lamellae, and the next side, you have a hard piece that is called the gill raker. Now, the gill lamellae is really thin, soft flaps of tissue that is found on the gill bar, right? Now, they're real thin so that it creates a large surface area so that the fish can get plenty of oxygen out of the water. Remember, the water going to have particles in it, right? You don't want it clogging up the actual gill itself and the lamellae of that actual fish. So the rakers act as a filtration for the fishes in order for them to filter out the water and for them to get the oxygen from the water that they need. Now, the thing is, the fish, right? Water will actually flow over the gill and bring the oxygen into the fish, right? Some fishes, it will actually flow through the mouth, over the gill, and then come out through the gill slits or the pouches, right? Now, some fishes, depending on where they are living, they will swim fast with their mouths open to make the water get in. Fishes that live in water that moves quickly, they will face upstream to get that water to come into them. But fishes that live in areas that these streams not moving fast, or they can't swim fast enough, they will do breathing movements, right? So like big fishes that don't really have speed, go do this. So what's gonna happen is their mouth will actually open. The underneath here of their pharynx is gonna be pulled down and water is gonna go in. When water gets in, it will go over the gill, the mouth will close, the floor of the pharynx will shoot up and push the water out of the side of the gill pouch. And literally all you have to know for this is the labelings of your gill underneath here, because this is your diagram of your gill. This is going to come back in a lab for you all. So make sure you know the labelings of your gill. make sure you know that the gill lamellae is the gas exchange feature in your fishes. All gas exchange features have the gas exchange surfaces have the same types of properties or features, right? With regards to their moisture, transportation, breathing movements, good supply of oxygen, those sorts of things, right? So at this point, I'm going to restart the meeting and I'll actually show you a real gill when we come back up. So let's restart now, same ID, same password. Right, so as in this, you can see in this photo, this person, they retracted the, how you call it? The pouch, they cut it, and you can actually see the gill here. So these pieces here, these lines, right? This fleshy part, this is your gill lamellae. Oh my God, sorry. This piece here, this part. I'm so sorry. I just prepped it earlier because when you started to do back your labs on them, and all you started to do drawings for the fish gill, this is what you're going to see. So I really want you to be prepared for what you're going to see, right? Now, what I would have done, like in the lab, I would have cut out like all of this and just have this piece in the center here for you, right? So this here is your lamellae. This here is the gill bar, the hard part that supports it. And these pointy pieces here that looking like a rake, those are your gill rakers, right? So I'm just giving you a heads up so that when you start to do your labs and you start to touch these weird looking things and see these weird looking things, you can identify them.
Wait, excuse me, you said touch these things?
Yeah, your teacher going to make you touch it.
What?
Yeah.
You're joking, right?
No, they're going to want you to inspect. Right. So the respiration, they get their glucose from the photosynthesis reactions. They're going to use up that energy to be able to carry out whatever function they have to, right? Now, all you can think, well, if you're looking at the two equations, the photosynthesis and respiration, you could say, you could think, well, respiration is the reverse of photosynthesis, but it's not, right? The two processes are distinctively different. Photosynthesis is occurred during the day. Respiration occurring day and night, right? So it's important, not because it look like a reverse via the equation, it's not the same anatomically or biologically, right? During the day, you have both photosynthesis and respiration occurring, right? Photosynthesis is actually going to be, it's going to occur at a faster rate, right? Some oxygen during the day is used back up in respiration and some is expelled, right? Well, the majority, I should say, is expelled. So you'll find that during the day, a plant is going to expel more of the oxygen as opposed to carbon dioxide. In night, photosynthesis stop. Plant air putting out no oxygen in the night. Instead, you will have a higher level of your carbon dioxide being expelled in the night. All right. So like I said, this note is going to be posted for you all. And there is this table that breaks down the gas exchange, comparing it from a unicellular organism, moving all the way up to a flowering plant. It shows you what is the surface, how it's kept moist, how it's supplied with the oxygen, how it's transported around the body, the oxygen is transported, and how they get the surface area to be so heavily divided, right? Now, this table is going to help you out greatly when we are doing our past paper questions next week.